Reggae interviews. Word sound power.
This is DJ745 for Reggae Interviews, here with Tessellated. He has an amazing debut EP, which has literally just landed. It's fresh and it's hot, and we're really excited to learn more about both him as a person, but also as a musician, artist, and producer. Tessellated, how are things today?
Doing well, man. Thank you for having me. Excited to talk to you about some music and get into it.
Okay, well, first of all, I have to start by saying congratulations on the release of the debut EP, the Tropics Vol.1. Some really groundbreaking beats and collabs. More on that later, but how is the EP being received across the world so far?
So far, I'm really happy with the reception, kind of across the board, different places in different countries, different regions. It's been really positive support, both for the video that I just released and the music itself. Some from, the same like fans I've had before, and also from new people, new markets, new DJs, new platforms been supporting. So I'm really grateful so far.
I mean, at the moment, it kind of seems, I think more so at the moment because of the world sort of almost in this lockdown that we're in globally at the moment. But even before that, it seems as though the way that music is now being digested by people is totally different to how it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And it seems like you're at the forefront of actually making sure your music, the visuals, everything is accessible out there.
Yeah, the times change and you kind of have to move along with them. So it's really just about making sure the music gets to the people, right? It's not about how, it's just as long as they get it and they're able to enjoy it. So yeah, it changes for sure. But so now, like as you've seen in the last year, even like the live segments have changed to a lot of online things, a lot of virtual things, which has the pros and cons. It's more accessible. You can actually have more interaction with people, and people might feel more connected in a certain way, but then also, there's that personal real life experience that you just can't replicate. So it's just about figuring out ways to get the music to the people and keep things moving one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be someone that's actually watching this interview today on Reggae Interviews that has maybe never actually heard of your music. How would you describe your musical style to somebody that's listening to you for the first time or being introduced to the name Tessellated?
For sure. So I definitely hope there's some new people listening. And I think the best way to describe it without hearing it is that it's a fusion based in Jamaican roots. So there's a lot of different styles blended in there. There's a lot of different elements and influences, but it's all rooted in Jamaican music and it has that feeling at the core.
Okay, because I like how you've sort of described your sound as almost being a fusion sound, because we were talking off air earlier, and Jamaican music has had some very, very sort of distinct sort of like periods, so we could go from mento to ska and rocksteady and so forth.
Definitely.
And your music doesn't fit into any of those sort of like categories or subgenres. It's totally different, and that's what's the really exciting thing about it.
Well, I think I think the interesting thing is that all of these different periods and these different styles that have come out of Jamaican music, they came out very organically, So you had ska, and someone started making a slowed down version of ska, and they're like, hey, I know, what is this, And that became reggae, and it's just like it's nobody knows what it's going to become in the moment. So I think right now, like I'm pushing forward something new that we don't know what it is yet, and eventually it's going to become something, and that will become another era. So it's just about, I'm just trying to push forward the music. I'm trying to create innovation, Can't stay the same forever.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. So why are you trying to innovate and create something new? Is that because what's out there at the moment doesn't quite appeal to you, or are you just wanting to push the boundaries further afield?
Yeah, I think it's just honestly, it's not even about necessarily specifically trying to do something for a purpose of innovation per se, but more just like that's the music that I like to make, right? So I love the music that's out there. Like I love old school reggae, I love one drop, I love lovers rock, I love ska, I love dance, I love mental, I love all these things, and all of them have their place, but that's not what I like to make, right? So when I'm creating these different influences and then these different blends kind of call to me, so I'm just making the music that's genuine to me, and that just happens to be in a new place that's not really been explored yet.
Okay. Because, I mean, when I sort of look at, you know, a Jamaican artist, you haven't taken that sort of traditional approach whereby, you know, you're going to be sort of like voicing on lots of different rhythms, working for lots of different producers, just waiting for that hit single to bust and then to sort of like move your career onto another platform. I think that from what I know about you, you've done things in a totally different, organic way.
100%. You know, I definitely haven't done any of the kind of typical Jamaican music industry things people expect. I think part of that is just kind of just by chance, by the way, you know, and the people I ended up connecting with and the way my things started developing, which is that, you know, in the beginning, I really was making much more kind of far out things, like very electronic based, very experimental, even more than my music now, no vocals, instrumental. And that wasn't, you know, something that was very popular in Jamaica. So I kind of found solace in the online community, like through SoundCloud and connecting with people that way. So I really wasn't focused on the Jamaican industry too much. So even when I actually started kind of coming full circle and making music that was more rooted in the Jamaican sound, I pushed that out through the internet first and foremost. And it was after I started getting support online and online radio, and even in the UK, that actually came back and started getting support in Jamaica. So by that time, I'd kind of skipped some of those steps of, like, you know, voicing on a bunch of different rhythms and trying to get one to hold. And because I also started production first, you know, I produce almost all of my own songs. So I never had to go and, you know, get a rhythm from someone. I could just make what I wanted to make. And even now, I could get rhythms from people, and I do work with people, but it's like I'm so particular about the sound that I want now that I couldn't just jump on a rhythm. Even if somebody gives me a rhythm, I have to do like a solid amount of work on it to get it to kind of fit in with the vision I'm trying to go with.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I guess that, you know, music has been a part of your life literally from the day that you were born. You were born in Kingston, Jamaica, and I know that you split your time at the moment between the United States, LA, and Jamaica. What sort of differences did you sort of like see when you were making that transition, moving from Kingston over to the United States, and what age were you?
So I actually moved to Orlando, Florida before I went to LA. So I went to school in Orlando for 2 years, studying audio engineering after high school. So that was the first. I think it was kind of like a stepping stone thing to before LA, because the thing about Orlando that I really liked is that there were people coming from different places, and just kind of the foundational elements that you kind of take for granted in Jamaica. Everyone connected in Jamaica, we kind of have the same foundational elements. We just blend it in a different way. Whereas, you know, in Orlando, I'm meeting people with musical backgrounds that are completely different than mine. You know, it's like, so we might hear the same chord progression, and in Jamaica, you know, people might think about that in a similar way, or a rhythm in a similar way. Whereas, you know, someone that, for example, grew up on only like folk and country music, they're going to think about music in a different way than me. And it's really eye-opening and kind of shows, you know, there's like limitless possibilities as to what you can really do. And even collaborating with those people and just, you know, having friends that were doing different things really opened up my eyes to different possibilities. And then even more in LA now, there's even more people. LA is a place where hardly anybody, I feel like, comes from there. There's so many people that are coming to LA from all over the world with a similar mission. And speaking of similar mission, that was I feel like another big factor, positive factor, is that, you know, coming from Jamaica, which even though it's a very creative place and it's a very, you know, musical place and it's a hub in a sense, it's still overall as a society a little bit older in mentality, right? So there's still a strong mentality of, okay, you know, the arts are over here and the real jobs are over here, right? Okay. Luckily not in my family. You know, my family has always been very supportive of me and my creative pursuits, but in general, there's that mentality, and whether or not you realize it, like kind of having that around you and that little bit of negativity, even from, you know, extended family or even like teachers or friends or whatnot, kind of weighs down on you. It's something you kind of have to push back against while you're trying to be creative. Whereas when you're in a space where everybody's pursuing the same type of thing and everybody believes that, you know, they can do it, and there's like a general positive mindset around music and around arts, it allows you to be way more productive and do much more, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't realize that you'd actually spent a couple of years in Orlando, but I'm guessing that that's where the connection with Valleys came about.
Yes,
The
yes.
producer behind that big single, Pine and Ginger.
Yes. So me and Valleys met through SoundCloud, and we actually ended up becoming roommates because he was moving from North Florida, and it was there like we co-produced Pine and Ginger, and then that whole thing
Wow.
ended up happening. Yeah.
see, in my generation, I mean, I've been listening to Jamaican music for almost 30 years, and when you're telling me the story that you actually hooked up with somebody else through SoundCloud, I just think that's totally amazing.
No, 100%.
In my days, I wouldn't have even dreamed of actually sort of like being able to collaborate or work together with someone just through clicking on a computer or laptop or something. And it's just amazing how far the world has gone.
No, definitely. I mean, right now, even on my project, Crayon, who is features on No Ansa, I've never met him in real life yet. There's Terracora, same thing. He's based in Amsterdam. Never met him. He co-produced me and my lady. Anne and Sundel. I actually met Anne. Anne and Sundel are both from Australia. They produce Tropics.
Yeah.
I met Anne. I have met Swindale. But when I actually did the song, I hadn't met them yet. So it's amazing, really, and I love it because it's like in a world where so many people are doing different things, you can just kind of find the people that you connect with best, right? You can find the people you work with best, and the distance is not a limitation at all. Like if the person I work with best is halfway across the world, I'm not stuck to just working with whoever can make it to the studio around the block.
Yeah.
I think it makes for better music at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, look, before we start talking about the brand new EP, The Tropics, I have to ask you a little bit more about that big single, 2017, Pine and Ginger. I personally feel that was like a really sort of like positive or strong moment for you as an artist in terms of developing your career. You've got many, many thousands of fans just based on that particular song. The visuals were amazing as well, because it was almost like a come to Jamaica kind of advert, the video was, because it was so shot. Tell us about the female vocalist.
Okay, for sure. So I mean, I'm 100% agreement with you. That that was a big step in my career, because that was really when I went from doing music as like almost like a pursuit or like a hobby to actually becoming like a full-time professional musician and being able to support myself off of music and like dedicate all my time to music. So the vocalist Amindi, she's a first generation American to Jamaican parents. She was born and raised in Los Angeles. And yeah, same thing, connected through SoundCloud. We didn't meet until after the song was actually released. And the funny thing is, when we sent the beat over to her, we did not know that her parents were Jamaican. You get me? We just had the beat and we just sent it to her because Valleys had worked with her a couple of times before. And she sent back this thing. I'm like, yo, this girl is like has some Jamaican heritage, or she's Jamaican, because like you can't just do this as an American, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was just like some serendipity right there, and that song came about. And yeah, it was just like super organic, I think the three of us just ended up connecting in just the right way. And she's currently like doing some other different type of things, like blending some R&B styles with her own style. So yeah.
Okay, and the video itself, that was shot in Portland, I think.
Yeah, I was shot in Portland, Drapers, and that was shot by Lil Internet, amazing director.
Right.
Amazing director. And yeah, it was really just very organic vibes. We didn't have a big crew or anything for that video. It was really just Lil Internet and us, a couple of hands, and we just went around the place and shot. There's no big set, there was no big styling, there was not that much. We just kind of went and shot what was there, and I think that it kind of captured the vibe perfectly.
Yeah, for real, definitely. And you even managed to get a remix of that song. That was in 2019, I think. You managed to get two more people on it as well as a collab.
Yes, so we dropped the remix in 2019 with Popcorn and Crayon, who are two, naturally like big Jamaican dancehall artists and some people who are doing a lot in pushing the culture forward. So that was crazy to have. Popcorn. I've been listening to Popcorn since like 7th grade, like 7th, 8th grade. because he's been around like doing this thing for a long time as well.
Yeah.
And Crayon, same thing. Crayon is amazing. He has his R&B dancehall fusion that's just like, you know, he's one of the only ones doing it on like that kind of style too, on like a bigger stage. So it was awesome to have that support, you know, and just to get that cosign from those people that's having looked up to them for so long.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of thinking that, you know, as an artist that's just sort of like very early on in his career, how do you actually go and manage to get two of the biggest dancehall acts, Popcorn and Crayon, to come on a remix with you? How did that happen?
You know, I think the main thing about that was the fact that the song, you know, the song really held the power, because the song in Jamaica especially was like a cult classic, right? So for like 2017 and 2018, both of those summers, it was constantly in rotation. Like I'm talking like turn on the radio for half an hour, you have to hear it at least once, you know? No matter what station, right? You go to a party, there's no way you're going to a party and you don't hear it once or twice, right? So they were just familiar with the song and they liked it, you know, and they saw that it was doing things. So the thing, I feel like Jamaican artists, honestly, like Jamaicans in general, when they see other Jamaicans really doing things, they are kind of quick to support, right? So I think it's just them like kind of putting their cosign behind, just like a next Jamaican set of Jamaican youths like doing things.
Yeah. And I mean, 2019, you also managed to grace the stage of probably one of the biggest festivals, Reggae Sunfest 2019.
Yes.
That must have been a good experience as well.
That was great. You know, I've been going to Sunfest for a long time as well, you know, so from even before I was doing music. So it was amazing to be able to go up there with my band and, you know, do our own thing, you know, like we don't necessarily do strictly reggae, but we were welcomed, and, you know, people love the music, and, you know, live is one of my favorite things to do. My band and I, we really put in a lot of work to make sure that we can recreate the music live in a way that it's like does justice to be honest. So that was great, and, you know, we're looking forward to doing a lot more. We're already getting into rehearsals again in hopes of things for the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of like, you know, music and instruments, I mean, when we talk about the EP, I think that you've had quite a like integral part to play in terms of the actual instrumentation on the album, on the EP as well.
No, definitely. You know, the EP is really like executive produced by myself. I produce, I think, I basically co-produced every track except for one, right, which is Tropics, title track. And yeah, you know, I think that the sound I'm going for is very distinct, and I know exactly what I want on every track that I make. I'm not always able to deliver all of the elements I want on every track, but I know that, you know. So for example, like when it comes to trumpets, right, I know I'm not the best trumpet player that I know, so I'm gonna get the best trumpet player I know to lay that down, you know. Or I know that certain times, like my brethren Philip from Circa 11, he's an amazing bassist, and I know sometimes I'm like, okay, I have this beat, I have these guitars, and I have these percussions, and I know I need a Circa 11 bass to complete it, right? So it's really just all about, you know, just getting the music done. I'm not one to be like, oh, I'm gonna do everything myself and not allowing anybody else to touch it. It's really just about like, you know, making things done, and when you can get it done with friends, it's even better, you know, because the energy just goes into the music and just makes it nice.
Yeah. Now, I mean, like when I've listened through to the EP, there is so many sort of different musical elements on there. We have hip hop, we have a touch of dancehall, Afro, Latin jazz. There's even Cuban elements in it as well. It's very, very sort of like, I don't know. I don't actually think that you could actually put it into any particular single genre, because, you know, you could have a pair of ears that are sort of like fixed more towards jazz that are going to draw towards it, dancehall as well, Afrobeats. I just love the whole concept of what you're putting out. To me, though, as it seems like your musical ears are not fixed in one particular plane. You know, you're a young artist, and it seems like you're sort of going out there and actually listening to a whole lot of music and different fusions and backgrounds.
No, definitely, you know, I think those elements and those styles where just come from my love of so many different genres of music, you know. I listen to so many different things on a regular basis that when I'm creating, I can't just hear one genre. I'm hearing possibilities, right, of so many different genres.
Okay.
And yeah, same thing. I don't feel like anybody listens to only one genre of music, right? I don't think there's anybody in this world who loves music who will say, okay, I'm only going to listen to rock, or I'm only going to listen to reggae. So then, as an artist, why should I be, constricted to making one genre of music? That's how I feel about it. But it's like I can have my foundational style, and I can experiment. And what I'm trying to create, even with this EP and in future music, is to kind of set up an expectation of me where people can expect the general feeling, but not be surprised when one song might sound Spanish and one song might sound more African, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that, living in this sort of like this online world that we're living in, and we were talking about, the influence of SoundCloud and things. I'm guessing that, music is so much more accessible now, and music of different nationalities and things as well. So 30 or 40 years ago, if you wanted to listen to music, let's say, that's originated on the other side of the world, it would have been quite difficult to do that because it was physical product, vinyl, CD, cassettes and things. We've got, access to radio stations across the world, streaming and so forth. So it does make the whole process bigger and easier. And I guess in a way, you mentioned earlier that a lot of the people that you've collabed with on this project, you've never actually met them because you've got sort of people that are working on this project from the UK, Australia, the Netherlands. And I guess that the world's almost become a smaller place because of the internet.
Definitely. No, definitely, and that's the thing. I think in that same reason that you said, about things being more accessible, and not being an issue to access music from other places, is the same reason that I think my music will connect with a lot of people from my generation, because they didn't grow up listening to one genre of music. You get me? They grew up listening to all of these different styles, and they currently listen to all these styles. So when they hear one artist making more than one style, it doesn't necessarily throw them for a loop, because their ears are exposed and their palette is wide, right? But yeah, in the internet, same way. As a consumer and as a creator, it's just the world is smaller, and I think that is definitely a positive thing. I think it's a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, look, let's home in on this new EP and the title track, Tropics. That one has been produced by A&H and Swindle from Australia.
Yes.
Great visual as well to that particular song as well. There's a few famous people in that as well. How did you get so many people to jump on that video with you?
So honestly, all the people in the video are just friends,
Yeah.
So it's just the people that I'm in communication with, the people I work with, the people I hang out with. Those are the people I call on. And it just happens that because, as I said, like Jamaica is a tight-knit community. Some of those people just so happen to be people who are, forging their own path in doing various things. So like, for example, even had like Walshy from Major Lazer come through, you get me? We have like Zach Jones, who's another super dope artist, and Naomi Cowan come through. And all those people as people, that same thing. If I was just, organizing a little link up or going out for a drink, it's the same people I would call.
Well, okay. And you've gone very pink in that particular project as well.
Yes.
Tell us about the pink. Come on, I want to know.
So the pink, you get me? I have the pink on right now.
Yeah, exactly.
The pink, I think. So for this video, it's a very hip hop leaning track, right? And it has that kind of more typical hip hop energy to it and that kind of swagger to it. So I think for me, I definitely wanted to have that represented in the video, where it's like, okay, we're gonna kind of do some of like the more typical things. So we'll have like the bunch of bikes, we'll have like the cool action shots, like we'll have like the money throwing, and we'll have like the champagne popping. But I wanted it to kind of be stylized in a different way, right? So I'm like, okay, how can I do these things without it feeling corny, by it being like, I don't want it to feel like we're taking ourselves too seriously. I'm like, all right, what can I do to like represent all these things, but also show that like, all right, we're kind of doing this a little bit satirically, but at the same time, like still having fun. And I was like, yo, let's do everything in pink. You get me? Like with everything in like baby pink. So it's like, even though we're doing all these like super gangster type of vibes, it's just like in the back of your mind, you're like, yo, why is everybody in pink? Like the money is clearly fake. You get me? Like all these type of things. So it's just more about having fun with it. And just, you know, stylizing things in a different way, because you wouldn't expect that. Or I think most people wouldn't expect that from a Jamaican artist, you know. They expect kind of like a more militant vibes, either like more rootsy or like with dancehall, like more street. Where I think that just kind of show that like we're not a monolith, right? Like different things, we can do different things, and just present ourselves in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, because, you know, there's almost this sort of stereotypical sort of like perception that we have when we think of a certain type of music, and there's almost like a certain look to go with it. And you, again, just like we said about the actual music, it doesn't fit into any boxes, and the visuals that we've seen so far don't do that either. I mean, if we sort of talked about one of the other singles, one of the first singles that I think was released from the Tropics, No Ansa, I've seen the visuals for that, and to me, I'm sort of thinking like a 1980s kind of like a retro sort of feel with that yellow telephone box and things.
Definitely.
Totally different again.
Definitely. Yeah, and that one too. Like the No Answer visual, it's really more like a lyric. I really want to make more like a moving lyric video.
Okay.
So like I just like the shots are very still, you know, it's just like panning back and forth, like a very retro kind of vibes, and just like really nice colors. Same thing. I just wanted to represent something different. Like I hadn't seen any Jamaican artists just do something like that, you know, where it's just different, you know, like it's just expressive on a whole. Like it doesn't have to be expressive within the confines of like Jamaican music or like society. And yeah, it's like taking influence from like, you know, like maybe like some retro American things, and those different type of vibes, because those things are things that like were relevant to me too, like in my childhood and all of that at the same time. But I speak of visuals, and I think just in general, I think visuals are something that's really important to me, and something that I want to stay consistent with, because I think, you know, same thing, watching the Pink video for Tropics probably shifted your mentality around the song, even when listening to it afterwards, because like that's what's stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And I think visuals can really shape how people see an artist and how people, you know, even perceive the music, in a way. So I really want to push that forward. I think it just adds, like really putting work into good visuals adds just like a whole other dimension to kind of showcase yourself and like express yourself as an artist.
Yeah. I mean, on that particular song, No Answer, that one's with Crayon from Nigeria.
Yes.
I'm always trying to sort of work out in my head now, because there's a really fine line between, is that actually dancehall or is it an Afrobeat kind of, and I just can't quite work it out, because there's elements of both within it. And there's times when I listen to parts of that song and I think, no, dancehall. And then I'm thinking, no, this is Afrobeat. You know,
no, for sure.
It's crazy. And, you know, again, like we said, the music doesn't fit into any boxes or categories. Was that the intention, you know, with that particular song? Because I think you called upon some UK production for that particular song.
Definitely. Bales and Footsteps, right? Two awesome UK producers. I actually worked on that with them while I was in the UK, so I haven't met them. Okay. But yeah, you know, I think the thing is, I think it's interesting what you said about dancehall and Afrobeats, because I think dancehall and Afrobeats are much more similar than a lot of people realize, and they're really coming from the same foundations.
Yeah.
A lot of Afrobeats people are influenced by a lot of dancehall artists and old school dancehall artists in the same way, and the producers as well. And the funny thing too is that in a lot of parts of Africa, they don't call it Afrobeats; they call Afrobeats dancehall, right? So it's really just, it's just. I mean, naturally, so you have two UK producers who have Nigerian roots, right? Then you have one Jamaican producer, myself. Then you also have a Jamaican guitarist. Then you have a Nigerian artist and a Jamaican artist. So it's gonna be like right in the middle, you know, like right on that boundary line. And that's exactly what I was going for. I just wanted to create that bend and kind of blur the lines a little bit, because I think the line is really not as distinct as people might think, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, listening through to the EP, one thing that I sort of picked up on was a lot of the tracks are really short in terms of the actual length. I don't think that there's a song that comes in at more than 3 minutes.
No, there isn't. so it's intentional, but not in like, so my tracks are kind of intentionally short, not for being short sake, but because of how I feel about music in general. So my music, a sentiment I hold it is that I never want someone to get bored, right?
Okay.
Ever. I never want someone to be bored listening to my song. So, or my project for that matter. So it's like when I'm creating my own song, I'm listening back to it. I am trying to kind of make myself happy where I'm like, okay, if I'm listening to this song, that you're never gonna reach that point where a section is dragging out too long. So you might have an intro, right? Starts off on one way, like right when you think the intro is getting a bit too long, it's like, okay, cool. We've come in with the chorus, and the chorus is quick and snappy, and it comes into the verse. It comes to another chorus, and then it goes into a bridge, and it's back to a chorus, and then there's an outro section, and it's done. And you're like, wow, like that was a journey, and you kind of like, all right, there's like a movement going from one part to the other, right? Like there's nothing that can stand less than a song that is just longer than it needs to be, like a 5-7 minute song. I mean, thing is, there are 5-7 minute songs that are amazing. You know, like if you look at like some old school rap bands, like Pink Floyd and them, man, they were masters at doing that.
Yeah.
But for me, and the type of music I make, I really feel like I like to keep things short. I'd rather you finish a song and be like, damn, I wish that was longer. Let me listen to it again. Than, you know, there's 30 seconds left on the song and it's like, okay, nah. Because I also want someone to enjoy the full experience. Like I don't want to have a song in its entirety and someone only wants to listen to half because the second half is boring. So I think that was that's a theme in my music creation, and that's why the project ended up being so short. But you know, I think it can be a positive because I think it's something that, you know, if you're getting ready in the morning, the project is like 16 minutes. Listen to the whole thing and be like, damn, I'm listening one more time on the way to work. Whereas like when you have like an hour and a half project, like nobody's listening to that at one time.
Yeah, no, I guess I hear you, and I guess I'm kind of coming more from the old school where I can put on an album and I'll keep listening to just side A again and again and again. But I think that the way that we are all taking in music now, obviously it's a lot more sort of on the go. So, you know, you might be going for a jog around the block or something, or you might be traveling to work or something. So you need something that kind of like fits within that sort of time period.
Slap.
You know, so
no, definitely.
Yeah, okay, no, it's interesting to kind of understand these things, and I think one thing I found myself is that for me to really get into a song, I have to keep hearing it. So there's been some songs that have been on constant repeat where I keep sort of picking up different elements and different sounds within the EP. So yeah, it's doing a good thing because I keep repeating the songs.
Yeah, more streams, more revenue. You know.
What sort of time period have you put this EP together on?
What parts of, could you repeat that for me?
What time scale has it taken to put
time scale
together? Yeah.
So the majority of this project was actually created within the last, I would say, year and a half. So I can actually tell you about, so I know that in like Sweeter, Me and My Lady, No Ansa, those are finished this year. No Ansa started last summer. Same thing. Sweeter, Tropics, all those were made like within like the last year. I think the only two that are outside of that is, you know, Santeria. I was done about 2 years ago, and I Learned Some Jazz Today was originally done from way back, but then, you know, the current version is the one from 2019 that was used for Apple's advertisement. So that's like a from last year. So really, like within the last year is the majority of the project, and most of the music was actually done from, you know, early this year, and then the rest of the year was just refining and making sure that everything was put together the right way, working on visuals, working on arrangements and that type of stuff.
Yeah. Tell the viewers, how did the collab between yourself and Apple come about? Because, you know, my understanding is that you already had that song, I Learned Some Jazz, and they somehow managed to get their ears on that song and then approach you. Is that kind of what happened?
That's pretty much, it was super organic, you know. At the time, I wasn't with a publishing house or anything like that. It was just the music supervisor who was in charge of that project had my song on SoundCloud. I had saved it on SoundCloud, and they just had it in a list. of possible songs they could use for different projects, and that song ended up working out for that project. It reached out, ended up redoing the song to bring it up to speed because it was a couple of years old, and it was a pretty smooth process. It was really amazing the way it came together, to be honest.
Yeah. I guess that particular version has actually brought you a lot more fans as well, after the massive sort of like publicity it's given you across the world. And I guess it had to be on the EP.
No, definitely. It brought a lot of different fans from different places who may or may not have ever heard my music, just because Apple is super international, the biggest company, right? Like, you need to say anything about that. But also, honestly, the real reason I wanted it on the project is I felt like it was that final piece that rounded it out, because I'm very jazz influenced in my music in general, but I think more of the songs on the project, they might have like a feel of jazz influence, but they're not very strongly. It's more of like a hint, like you might have a little bit of a solo here, or a little chord progression there. But more of the project was kind of, Jamaican music rooted with elements from elsewhere. But that song definitely was more jazz, hip hop influence. So I just wanted to have that in there, because same thing for someone like you who may not have heard anything before. I want someone to be able to listen to from track 1 to track 7 and be like, okay, I understand who Tessellated is from this.
This is the journey, basically. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, there's one song on there that I have to talk to you about. The collab,
Okay.
Protege, Sweeter.
Yes.
What an amazing song that is, and to me it kind of feels like it's the sort of vibe that Protege's on with the whole Indignation Collective as well.
100%. I think that Protege's whole vibe. Protege has been pushing the music forward, right? From the beginning of his career. Now he has some dope artists signed to indie. Like Sev, Leela, Jazz, who are all friends of mine. I was actually just hanging out with Sev last night, talking about some music and various things. Okay. And it's really just like an organic type of thing. Same thing, like all these people and all these things. Like Protege is actually like a bridging. Like I go up to the studio and hang out and just vibe, and we just talk about stuff and music and run joke and those type of things. I think so. It's a music. I feel that expresses itself in the music, right? We're saying like we're trying something different. Like we're doing like this Latin vibe, and it's something that maybe not many Jamaican artists have done before. But we're also not doing it necessarily to be different. We're not like, okay, we're gonna do something to shock people or to like things. We're just doing because we're like, hey, we love this music. Like let's create something. Let's create something good. That's kind of how it came out. It came about. It actually started. His verse started from 2017. Actually, we had another collab working on, where he started that verse for that collab. That collab ended up not working out. It didn't like how it ended up coming out. So that didn't end up releasing. And then we did a couple other versions of some beats. And then earlier this year, I ended up making that beat, and then writing another song to it. And I was like, hey, I think you should try come on this. Maybe you could try something with what you've written before and that energy, and like work with it for this beat. And it just came together. Same thing. But it was really fun. It's super dope to work with him, because same thing, I've been fan of him from before I was making music, just as an artist. I think he's a really dope person, someone that's really important to the culture right now. And he's really one of the biggest artists who's championing like young artists, and really like developing young artists and like investing in the next generation of Jamaica. So it's someone I have massive respect for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, the label deal that he's managed to get in 2020 for Leela, IK, Savannah and so forth, I think that's just truly amazing, because it's not something that I don't think has been done in Jamaican music ever before, to get a label deal like that. So yeah, we've got to give our credit to Protege and the rest of the artists he's working with, because they are really putting out some music that, again, to me, doesn't quite fit into those boxes again. There's elements of roots, there's elements of dancehall, but it still sounds very, very unique in its own right, just like the Tropics does.
Definitely, definitely. And his latest project is amazing in its own right as well.
Yeah.
Certainly his unique style, but then you can kind of expect there to be something different, developments each time it comes up.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you see the Tropics, the EP actually going in terms of in 2021? I mean, I know that at the moment we're very restricted in terms of not being able to get out there to do live shows, touring and so forth, which must be quite hard for you as an artist, because this is your first sort of like real body of work that you're putting out. And I'm sure that you're hungry to want to sort of jump on a plane and go here, there, and perform this live to people. Where do you see things going yourself now for 2021?
So, I believe, well, hopefully, I think everyone is hoping that, by the end of 2021, we'll have returned to some form of normalcy and be able to, have some level of touring and live shows. Just because my music is very live instrument based in its creation. We put a lot of work into live. So a big part of this project initially was kind of focused around the live elements. And that was part of the rollout plan. Because we had actually my first proper tour, right? I was only touring with Pata Ranking, who's another, African artist. We had like, it was 35 dates across the US. Plus there was South by Southwest, and plus there was like some reggae festivals, and that wasn't even including like the Europe set of things that was also lining up for later in the year. So it was really supposed to kind of be pushing out music while touring and gaining new fans from that. Naturally, all that got flipped on its head. But for 2021, as I said, as I said in the beginning, it's really about getting the music to the people one way or another. So if we can get back on the road, if we can get back in front of those stages, naturally we're going to be there. And if we can't, we're still going to figure out a way to get the music there, whether it's going to be, some online concerts, where it's going to be, kind of hosting some different things, just like figuring out some different ways to push the content socially, where regardless, we're going to have, videos for the rest of the songs on the project. We're going to have a video for Sweeter and for Rendezvous, which are the only two that don't have videos right now. So yeah, the music is going to be out there, the content's going to be out there, and there's a lot more music as well coming in 2021. So it's just keeping it moving forward.
Definitely. Well, look, Tessellated, I really give thanks for your time today to share with our viewers a little bit of background into who you are as a person, and also the new EP as well, the Tropics, which I know is available on all digital platforms.
Sure.
How can the viewers connect with you? Is it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? What is it that the easiest way to connect with you?
So the easiest way to connect is IG. You can find all the updates there, and that's at Tess Vibe. You can also find me at Tessellated on Twitter. That's where you're gonna find us like more random content and like streamer consciousness type vibes. But IG and same thing on all platforms as Tessellated, TESSELLATED. You can find Tropics Vol.1 everywhere. You can find the video for it on YouTube at Tessellated same way. And yeah, man, big up for having me here. I really appreciate you letting me come on my platform. It's been a super dope conversation. It's been really fun, to be honest. So thank you.
Definitely. Well, look, we're going to definitely keep pushing the music over here in the UK and across into Europe as well. We're going to look out for you live as well, hopefully in 2021, if not 2022 hopefully as well. And just keep doing what you're doing. That's all we can say. So we give thanks for your time, and big up to your management and also Spoonfed Entertainment for making the connection possible.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Blessings.
Give thanks. Cool.
Peace.
Reggae interviews. Word Sound Power.